Well, are you sick to death of politicians and elections yet? If you are, don't worry, I've got the perfect remedy. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Dr. Patrick Jones from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. And it's election season again, right? The time when politicians get up and tell us that if we don't vote for them, the bad guys are going to win and the whole world is going to come crashing down. And honestly, I think it's really sad. I think it's really sad that as a society, we've been duped by these charlatans. The real problems that are facing our society aren't going to be managed and controlled by some elected official. You know, the real problem is that we've been seduced into a lifestyle and a society where we're way too dependent on abstract systems and way too dependent on people we don't even know, right? We need to get back to what our founding fathers were all about. You know, go back to the founding of this country and what were they passionate about? Well, they were passionate about independence, right? They wrote a paper, a document called the Declaration of Independence. It was about self-reliance. It was about self-governance. And they prized above everything else the right, the God-given right, they said, to life and to liberty and to the pursuit of happiness. They'd had their fill of demagogues and dictators far away that didn't know anything about them and didn't represent their interests and didn't have their welfare and success at heart as the forefront of their purposes as leaders. No, they were getting power and glory so they could have power and glory, right? And we've been kind of, as a society, seduced into that same thing. You know, we get told that we can't succeed without them. You know, we get told that everything's against us and that we're victims of this or of that, you know, and that this group or that group is bad and oppressing and yada, yada, yada. And honestly, what we need to learn to do is to solve some problems on our own, right? We need to learn how to work. We need to learn how to provide for ourselves and take care of ourselves and take care of our community and take care of our neighbors and quit depending on abstract, uncontrollable, unsustainable systems. You know, it used to be in the old days, when I was a kid, every store you walked into had a big storeroom in the back. Grocery stores, hardware stores, all of them. They had a big storeroom in the back full of inventory. And if you needed something and they didn't have it in the store, they'd go back in the back and get it for you. You know, they had a couple of weeks or a couple of months worth of inventory in case something happened and they ran out of something. Well, now nobody has a storeroom on their store. And every single day the delivery trucks drive up and they unload their trucks right onto the shelves. And you know what? If those trucks don't come tomorrow, there ain't nothing on those shelves. Okay, that'd be a real problem. You know, back in the Great Depression in the 1930s, it was really bad, right? But people got through it. And how did they get through it? Well, because most of them had a garden. Most of them had a goat to milk. Most of them had a cow and a root cellar full of, you know, jars of produce and a basement full of bags of grain. And, you know, I mean, they had some storage. They had some things set aside for times of difficulty that they could access during times of difficulty. Because you know what? Their lives were hard. Sometimes the crops failed. And you better have some food in your basement so that you can survive until next planting season, right? It was all about self-reliance. It was all about taking responsibility for yourself, taking responsibility for your loved ones, and not depending solely on some, you know, politician to solve all your problems, some government program, right? Now, years ago, when I first started practicing as a veterinarian, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I practiced in Minnesota, and a lot of my clients were Amish folks. Great people, salt of the earth. And, I would go out and work on their cows. I would go out and work on their draft horses that were, running their farm and doing all the plowing and harvesting and all the work. Their furry tractors. And I got to be really good friends with these folks. And one day I was talking to one of my Amish friends, and I said to him, "So why is it that you want electricity?" And he looked at me, and the look that he had on his face was sort of like, he couldn't believe that I would even have that question. Like it was so obvious. Why wouldn't I know the answer to that question? And he says to me, "Because I don't know the man at the electric company." And I mean, what a really interesting answer. He wasn't willing to make his life and his family and his business dependent on systems he had no control over and people he didn't even know, right? And so he built a life, and that community built a life on systems they do understand and people they do know. And, just as a classic example, about 2 or 3 weeks after that conversation, one of the other guys in town, one of the other Amish fellows, his barn burned down. And guess what happened? Guess what the Amish guys did? They filled up their wagons with tools and with lumber, and they drove over to Daniel's house and they built him a new barn, right? Now that's a system you can depend on. That's people that you can depend on, right? Now, the good news is that I'm seeing more and more that desire for self-reliance among other people. The pendulum has kind of swung, and people aren't starting to say, "Holy cow, we're a little too dependent on things." And so instead of, people are starting to have their own garden. They're starting to grow their own food instead of just depending on, processed nonsense that's shaped like food. They're starting to learn about real medicine. They're starting to learn about medicinal plants and other things that can benefit their health and feed their bodies and give them the resources they need to be healthy. And they're doing that instead of depending on a healthcare system that frankly is really broken. And the treatment protocols are being written by corporations and accountants and attorneys and insurance companies instead of by doctors. I'm seeing that more and more, but I think it's fantastic. I applaud that. I celebrate it. In fact, everything that we're doing with the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine and, homesteadacademy.com, the platform for other schools. We have a school, we have the Herb School, Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine, but we also just put up a school on emergency assessment and intervention. What do you do to keep the guy alive for a half an hour till the ambulance gets there, right? That's a good skill to have, right? You can't depend on the ambulance. What if it takes him a half hour to get there? What if he doesn't get there at all because there was a train wreck in a different county and they all went to that county? What if there isn't any ambulance someday? And so that's a school to give some skills, to give some knowledge. We're just now putting up a school on auricular therapy, which is a phenomenal modality for healing and resolving all kinds of health issues. And having those skills and those tools, and there's other schools, go to homesteadacademy.com and look at them. But, having that skill set is remarkably useful, not only when there's an apocalypse, but all the time, to get us more self-reliant, to get us more independent, and to get us out of the system that we don't know anything about and we don't have any control over, and is being governed and run by people that could care less about us. What they're most interested in power and influence and the bottom line. That's what they're interested in. Okay. And I'm not saying don't vote. Go vote. That's really important. It's important to make your voice heard. It's important to, elect as good a candidate as you can find, if you can find one. It's also, if you're sick and you have a problem that only a doctor can fix, go to the doctor, right? I'm not saying don't go to doctors. I'd be dead 3 times if it wasn't for a smart guy with a scalpel. And so there's some problems that you really need a doctor for. But there's some problems, most problems with our health, we don't really need a doctor for, right? And we certainly don't need the mountains of pharmaceuticals that we're being given to solve those problems. You know, I was at a conference this week and I met a sweet lady who's on 29 pharmaceuticals. She's on 29 pharmaceuticals. And I guarantee half of those are to manage the side effects of the first half. You know, it's insane. And you watch the commercials on TV about the drugs, and it seems like their philosophy now is that as long as we tell you all the horrible things that are likely to happen to you if you take this pill, it's okay. We can still sell them, right? As long as we told you that this pill that makes your skin not itchy might destroy your liver or cause suicidal tendencies or yada, yada, yada. And they talk for longer than the commercial about all the side effects that are horrible. But you won't have itchy skin. Order now. Ask your doctor, right? Well, why are they even selling a product like that? You know? And more and more people are realizing that they don't need that. They don't need to be too dependent on those systems. They don't need to be dependent on those products for everything. You know, there's some things that you need a good pharmaceutical for. There's some things you need a good surgeon for. Absolutely. But for most things, the plants in your backyard are more medicinal, more valuable, more useful, and have way less side effects. You know, we raised 15 kids in our home, mostly adopted, but we raised 15 kids. And we had 2 or 3 doctor visits during the 30 years it took us to pull that off. Everything else, kids went out in the garden and got what they needed, you know, or they went to the herb cupboard and got what they needed. Those are the kinds of skills we need. We need to really, really work on developing real skills and acquiring real knowledge so that we can be self-reliant, so that we can be independent, so that we are not, you know, in this panicky system where if we don't have support from all these extraneous, unsustainable systems, we're going to crash and die. We can't live like that. That's no way to live. And so, you know, let's focus on things that matter. Let's learn some real skills. Let's get some real knowledge. Let's have some real relationships. You know, let's really love people and really serve people and really be there for people. Let's quit worrying about being politically correct. Let's quit worrying about how many Facebook likes we got on our Facebook post on social media, right? And let's have real relationships. Let's learn to love and serve people when they're having a hard time. And guess what? They'll love and serve us when we're having a hard time, right? We're surrounded by good people. And I don't care where you live. And I don't care what color pom-poms they wave on election day. We are surrounded by good people. Let's build real community. Let's talk about things that matter. You know, if you took 100 people in this country, and I don't care from where, I bet you they'd agree completely on 90% of the stuff. Why aren't we working on that stuff? Instead of the hyper-polarized, crazy stuff that the politicians use to separate us. You know, let's tell the politicians to take a hike and let's work on things that we all need to work on and want to work on. So, I really encourage you to go vote on election day. You know, make your voice heard, hold your nose and pick somebody that you think is better than the other person. Pick the lesser of two evils, but don't depend on those guys to solve your problems. And don't get seduced into thinking that they're the only ones that can solve your problems, because they're not. The only one that can really solve your problems is you and God. And, you know, we've received this glorious, abundant, amazing world. Let's learn how to use it. Let's learn how to use real food and real medicine to help ourselves. Let's get real skills. Let's get real knowledge. And to the degree that we do that, I think that we'll be a lot healthier, we'll be a lot happier, and we'll be a lot more self-reliant. And when the politicians start yakking about how the world's going to end next week if we don't pull the right lever, we can roll our eyes and laugh and get back to business of providing for others and caring for others and taking care of our families. I'm Doc Jones from the Home School of Botanical Medicine. Thanks for listening. Go out and vote, and have a great day.